Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On tonight's agenda, after the reading of the agenda and the minutes from prior meetings, there will be community relations, announcements, and open forum. We have 2 appointments and resignations, one for the Old Home Day Committee, one for the Boston Post Cane Committee. We have about a half a dozen scheduled appointments. Fire Chief Ed Knopf for a pinning, retirement recognition, public meeting to discuss the renaming of Potter Village Bridge, an addition and amendment to the conservation easement of a property, refuse service, and a request to re-energize the Energy and Environment Committee. 5 items in the new business to discuss the possibility of an LNG committee, what steps and formation will be taken. The Spartan Race, request for an alcoholic beverage license and traffic and crowd management permit. Appointment of a town administrator search firm. That is 2 of these items. I apologize. One scheduled appointment, refuse service, is being held at the request of the person who wanted it on the agenda, and the appointment of the administrative search firm is also on hold. We will move then from the Spartan Race to discussion of possibly removing the police chief and lieutenant positions and other options from civil service. Email communications from Ms. Biwak. 2 items under old business, Treehouse Brewery, traffic flow challenges, and planning board legal expense. After that, BOS committee reports, policy review, the town administrator report, any other business unknown at time of posting, and then the board will be going into executive session and will come out of the executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment. So the first item, do you have any announcements?
Through the chair. I make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes of June 4th, 2019.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of June 4th, 2019. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting from June 18th, 2019.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 18th, 2019. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Okay, very light announcements tonight. There will be a special election on Tuesday, August 13th, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Heritage School. There are absentee ballots available at the town clerk's office. If you didn't answer your 2019 census, you should have received a confirmation postcard. Please sign and return to the town clerk as soon as possible. And the special election is for the public safety building funding mechanism. First item under, well, before we go, is there anyone here for open forum? Trying to get ahead of myself.
I was going to let you.
I got it.
Stephen Sage, 41 Lincoln Point Road, Charlton. I was driving up to town earlier in the month, and on the side of the road, I noticed a very large limb hanging straight down. Didn't know whether it was on wires or what. I didn't know whether it would fall into the woods or fall onto cars and kill somebody. So I stopped by the highway department, spoke with Cheryl about it, and then went on my way up to the library to do some library business and a couple other errands. About an hour later, I drove back home, and the limb was already gone. So either I have a tremendous influence on what can get done in this community, or when the highway department is given a potentially dangerous situation, they react seriously to it and take care of it. I have a feeling it's the latter as opposed to the former, but it'd be nice to think that I might have had some influence. So I want to publicly commend the Highway Department for getting a dangerous situation taken care of very, very quickly. Now, if I can just influence the town on looking at private roads and stop thinking in terms of the archaicness of private roads and start paving all roads in this town so that they're all passable, I would love to see that also. I know the Highway Department has spoken to you about that issue. We are all taxpayers. Well, I shouldn't say we are all taxpayers. I don't know about other people, but we do pay our taxes of the state, we pay our taxes of town, and I think all roads in town, whether they're considered private or public, ought to be taken care of very, very well. Our roads in private road are getting to be pretty impassable and damaging to vehicles. And so I would like you to consider that, and people in town to maybe consider looking at how we can fund taking care of those private roads a little bit better so the people who live in this community are treated on a more equal basis. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will convey those thanks to the Highway Department. Ms. Degnan?
Good evening, Lori Degnan, Osgood Road, and I'm not here about solar. I actually have a question and then a comment. I couldn't find it anywhere, but I was wondering how it came about that finding a liquid natural gas supplier is on your list of goals and objectives. How did it get there? I keep hearing it's on your, but I can't find any notes.
So I would have to actually research that or ask the town administrator if she could get that for us. But I would hope we'd be able to get that in a very timely fashion and get that
Okay.
to you.
I
'Cause
assumed it
obviously
was EDC is my guess, because it might bring
obviously-
business in, but I couldn't find any minutes, so.
Yeah, it obviously had to originate at some point in time, so I think we should be able to pinpoint that
Okay.
and find that out.
And then my comment is, in the newspaper and on any paperwork with LNG, they keep referring to Route 169 as an energy corridor. So I don't know who came up with that term, but I've never heard of it before last. When did we go before one of those sighting boards? So I looked it up online, and it's a federal designation. It's a federal government, federal land, because of the Energy Policy Act of 2005, it facilitates future siting of oil, gas, hydrogen, electricity, and distribution. So it implies, when I keep reading it in newspapers and hearing it in paperwork, that it's already been approved as an energy corridor. That's just, I believe, maybe Boris came up with that, or Incom, because they own the land and they want to sell it. I just would like it, maybe someone can say, stop calling it that, because it implies that's what we want there, and that's what we want to get more of.
So I think that's another question we can get answered, hopefully, Ms. Craig, we can find out. Is it actually designated as such or not?
Actually, David, I can help with that one.
Mr. Boraski?
Well, thank you. So short answer, I actually asked the very same question, and it's purely a marketing thing that they've come up with. It's literally made up. I mean, I know it actually has a designation, but
They
that,
use it incorrectly.
correct, that area there, they're using it purely for marketing purposes.
Okay, so for protection of Charlton, I'd like to see them stop using that and maybe a formal request, because it, like I said, it sounds like that's what we want.
So I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, from our perspective, we can request that, and we can make sure in any of our communications that we don't refer to it in that manner. But I think we'd be hard pressed to tell another entity what words they should or shouldn't use in their marketing. We can request it.
Maybe the press can too.
I'll definitely pass it along, let's put it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for open forum? All right. The first item on our agenda then is an appointment for an Old Home Day Committee appointment. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Attached is a talent bank form from Jerry Doble, seeking to be appointed to the Old Home Day Committee. I would recommend the board make the appointment. His term of expiration would be June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Although I do want to see him in the soapbox derby for the record.
Well, our thanks to Mr. Doble. We can never get enough volunteers. Our next appointment, is that missing?
Page 32.
It's Kathy.
Yep, here we go. All right, Boston Post Cane Committee, Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. As you know, some appointments expired on June 30th, 2019. You were provided with a list of reappointments at your last meeting, and we noted that we were still waiting to hear from a few people. Kathy Keel is seeking to be reappointed to the Boston Post Cane Committee. Her new expiration date would be June 30th, 2020. I would recommend the board make the appointment.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We will move on to our first scheduled appointment. We're only a few minutes behind. Chief? Ms. Craver?
Yes, Fire Chief Knopf has asked for time on the agenda for the official pinning of our newest members of the fire department. We're scheduled at 6:40.
Thank you, Town Administrator, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we use the word loosely new. They've been here for 4 months now, 5 months actually. But we want to make sure that they're going to pan out before we go with the pinning. And also, we've got a little backlog in actually getting the badges from our suppliers, so that's why the delay. So if I could, I'd like to bring forward, first I'll bring forward firefighter Rich Levangi. Rich comes to us from Auburn, and presenting his pin to him is his mother. Congratulations.
Well done.
And lastly, I'd like to bring forward Derek Hirons. Derek comes from us via Holden. Derek has been a longtime firefighter throughout the Central Mass area, and very lucky to have him.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Customary, would you like to have them come up?
Absolutely.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job, Chief. We're still holding out for you, just so you know. We're not convinced you're okay.
What was that?
We're still not convinced that.
Me?
Yeah.
It's a long probationary period, I get it. And that's all I have. If you guys got anything for me, if not, thank you very much.
I think Chief Knopf's getting off easy tonight.
I know, I feel a little guilty. That's why I'm asking something.
Oh, if you make him sit back down again. Okay. The next item on the agenda, our 6:45 p.m. appointment, is regarding a retirement. Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. At the board's May 21st meeting, you were notified that Deborah Cheslick was retiring as our outreach coordinator after 15 years of service to the town. A certificate has been completed for the board to present to Ms. Cheslick. And is she here?
Is she here this evening?
She wasn't.
She is,
Yes,
she's out
she is.
back.
Oh, I am back.
We couldn't see you behind Jean.
Yes.
Good
So-
evening. Good
How are
evening.
you?
I'm great, you?
Doing well, thank you. Every day I wake up is a good day. If you'll humor me, I'll read the certificate. It says, "For your dedication to the town of Charlton in serving as the outreach coordinator for 15 years, your knowledge and experience will be truly missed. You were a great asset to our team and a pleasure to work with. We wish you well in your retirement." Presented on this 30th day of July in the year 2019.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting.
Do you guys want to come down and get a picture with that?
Oh, I need a picture with everybody. You will. I definitely gotta get a picture with everybody. Oh, yeah.
I think we can arrange
It's
that.
gotta happen. Let me get a picture of all of you up here, wherever they want me to go. But I want to here. Come on here. Yes, I gotta have the team with me. You don't have any, you didn't have any.
Do you have your phone?
Oh, I left it in the car.
Oh, you want to go?
Over here. Got that? I got it. Okay. Sorry,
Yeah, I know you're in trouble now. Want to tilt your head, Bill? Please check the pictures. Make sure. Everybody walks away.
Thank you. I'm so glad you took a picture with me. That means a lot to me.
Thank you for all your hard
Thank
work.
you. John. Thank you.
I lost a bet.
Thank you so much. I just want to say one thing before I leave, is that I want to just let you know how much I appreciate being able to have the opportunity to serve the seniors in our town. It's not just giving, but what I've gotten back from the senior community. So I am very blessed, and thank you so much for everything that you do for our town, and we're very lucky to have the employees in this town that do a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay cool.
Stay cool.
Now we've gone ahead of schedule.
That's it.
So,
I think,
7 PM.
Frank, is everybody here from your group, if we move on?
Yeah.
Ms. Craver?
At the board's June 18th, 2019 meeting, you approved the naming of the town property policy. You were also notified of a request from Francis Hilka Jr. and Dan Mazzone asking the board to consider renaming what is now known as Potter Village Bridge to Francis Hilka Sr. and Joseph Mazzone Bridge. Abutters have been notified that discussion would be held tonight. We received an email from Stanley Lewandowski, who has no problem with the naming of the bridge. We reach out to the DPW Superintendent Foskett to see if he had any comments or concerns. Mr. Foskett would like to thank the Hilkas and Mazzonis for their help and cooperation they gave to him at bringing the Potter Village Bridge reconstruction project to a successful completion. We also received today a letter from Ruth and Donald Lundstrom, and it says, "This is a brief note to express our support for the renaming of Potter Village Bridge to the Francis Hilka Sr. and Joseph Manzoni Bridge."
Through the chair.
The chairman should open the public meeting
Is it hearing or public?
by reading the notice to abutters.
Just kidding. So, July 8th, 2019, notice of public meeting. The Board of Selectmen have received a request from Francis Hilka Jr. and Daniel Manzone to rename what is currently known as Potter Village Bridge, located on Potter Village Road in Charlton, Mass., to the Francis Hilka Sr. and Joseph Manzone Bridge. The board will be discussing this request at their meeting on Tuesday, July 30th, 2019, at 7 p.m. at the Charlton Municipal Building, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. 01507, and are seeking community feedback. You are invited to attend the above meeting or forward any comments in writing to the Board of Selectmen, 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. 01507, or email to mary.devlin@townofcharlton.net, no later than Wednesday, July 24th, 2019. And I do declare the hearing open.
Does anybody have any comments besides, from
Anyone?
the audience? Because I'm going to make a motion.
Does anyone want to talk or have any comments from the audience? No?
I would like to speak.
Mr. Gerard?
Good evening. I'm Todd Gerard. I'm your conservation agent, and I'd just like to speak on behalf of Franny Hilka Sr. Mr. Hilka was very instrumental in my life as a kid, He grew up in this town, and he's one of the reasons I joined the United States Army as an infantryman. Mr. Hilker was awarded the Bronze Star in World War II for valorous combat action, and he was also awarded the Purple Heart because he was wounded in combat. Before I deployed, I spoke to Mr. Hilker and asked him what I was up against, and he says, "I'll tell you when you come home." And when I came home, we spoke at a different level than probably he speaks to his family or anyone else, because I'm a combat infantryman just like him. I really think we should honor Mr. Hilker. He was one of the soldiers, he was just a private first class, who liberated a concentration camp known as Dachau. This was one of the larger concentration camps in Germany. It held political prisoners and also religious and all other types of prisoners. I personally went to Dachau in 1988, and I got to see what went on there. And I am proud to say I know Mr. Hilker and stood in his footsteps with the other soldiers who liberated Dachau. I think we should do all the World War II veterans a service, and I support this naming of the bridge in honor of a World War II veteran and a Korean veteran. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Through the chair.
Mr. McGrath.
I'd like to make a motion that we take name the former Potter Village Bridge to the Francis Hilker Sr. and Joseph Menzone Bridge.
So, second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
That's a great idea.
No?
Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. And it's enjoyable sometimes to be able to take on this kind of business and honor people who deserve it and have earned it.
Through the chair, I'd like to ask if, with the board's permission, to have the town administrator maybe figure out how we're going to sign the bridge at both ends. And if she needs some help with that, I can probably give her a hand.
That would be really cool if when we do get the bridge signed, that we have a little ribbon cutting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If I could add another piece.
Sure.
That I had a call today from the strictly coincidental. I had a call today from the Lieutenant Governor's office. She will be coming tomorrow. As you know, we received a grant to do this bridge, and she will be coming to take a walk through the bridge. Mr. Hilker has kindly allowed us to park in his property. And so if any of you, and I told them that I would invite you, so if any of you are available at 3 o'clock, please come down for the kind of unveiling and walking through with the Lieutenant Governor. We also have another grant in process, so we're looking to thank certainly the administration for the first grant and hopefully receive the next one.
Thank you. I believe we have to actually close the hearing, correct?
Yes.
We
And,
have to re-go it after the hearing's closed.
no, I think you're fine.
So we'll declare that hearing closed at 7 PM, 7:01 PM.
The last thing I do want to say is I'd like to thank our highway superintendent for the good work that he did in putting that bridge together and to shepherding it and getting the grant.
He's not here, is he?
He is not, he was unable to make it.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Craver. And thank you to the Hilka and Menzones. We are way ahead of schedule.
You just cursed us.
So can we move ahead then?
We could, Mr. Chair, we could skip and go to new business
If everyone's here,
I see Treehouse here. Would you like to get in and out? Do you have everybody
She's
here or
not
you?
here. He's not here yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, he's not. Okay.
Do you want to do the email?
we could,
Karen?
we could, sure.
So we can jump ahead to number 5, email communication, Ms. Biwak, and we can get that taken care of.
Yep. We're all gonna scroll to page 96.
Peter,
Sorry, I made you
in
scroll.
the back?
What are we doing?
They're going,
We're
they're
doing
skipping
email.
that for now, doing a different one.
Because we're ahead of schedule.
Which one are we?
Just want to make sure everyone had time to get here,
Page
that's all.
96.
Page 96. Karen, Ms. Biwak?
Yep, thank you for putting this on the agenda. I just wanted to make a request and draw attention to, currently, if a person, it's about email communications to individual select board members. Currently, if a person goes to the town website to send an individual selectman an email, they have to fill out, populate fields that are mandatory. And it includes like phone numbers and the address, et cetera. And then, after it's sent, it actually goes to, so if someone was sending something to me, they clicked on me, it would go to me, but it would also go to the town administrator and the admin, Mary Devlin. But the sender doesn't know that it's going to those people. The recipient knows, so I'd like to request that we remedy that. I think, I understand if someone clicks on and wants to send an email to the entire board, that the town administrator and Mary would be copied in that case, but if someone's intent is to send it to a specific individual, I think it should just go to that individual, and they should handle it or forward it as seen fit.
Through the chair.
That's all.
Ms. Noble?
I see your point in that the sender is not aware that it's going to two other individuals. What I might suggest is that we have some language drawn up, and it's fairly simple, to do a disclaimer, so that the individual knows when you click on this email and you're sending it, have a disclaimer so that they know it's going to two other office staff for administrative purposes to keep a record of it.
So if I could ask, just for my own edification, what is the purpose of the two CCs? So for example, I understand that every piece of correspondence in and out of the system is public record anyway.
Yep.
Which means anyone in the world has access to it. But if someone did want to email me directly, I guess just what would the reason be to have it go to the TA and admin as well as myself? Like, what would the reasoning be for that?
I would think that just sending it to one of them would be appropriate, but again, I would say that we put a disclaimer on there that say, if just to let you know, this is, your email is a public record, because some people may not know that when they're emailing as well.
Through the chair, I know if the town administrator wants to answer, I think the question maybe was directed. I'm assuming you had to make that decision because we didn't. Sorry.
My question is, what's the reasoning to have it copied?
Certainly, and I'd be glad to answer that question. And as you know, over the past year, we've had many, many records requests. And some complied with better than others. The thinking behind doing this was, one, because in the past, and not so much now, I think all the selectmen at this board at this time are checking their emails on a regular basis. But not so long ago, we had people who did not use their, or could not get in them, or didn't see them. And I think about some of the hot issues where people had emailed board members, and board members were not aware that they had received an email. So this was a way of getting them, making sure that everybody gets responded to in their view, and to print them and put them in the incoming. I agree that putting a disclaimer saying that it will go not only to the selectmen, but also to office staff for purposes of public records would be a good disclaimer. I also have no problem if the selectmen want to, take that responsibility on themselves. This is just an added safe fail that we try to do. And I know that this board has been very active about transparency.
And through the chair, at first I appreciate Ms. Noble's comment and suggestion. I think it's a good one. But I would like to suggest we actually put a disclaimer or a comment on the website that says that if you do not get a response, within a certain amount of time, that you should contact and then have maybe the town administrator's address. And here's why, because it's not consistent. For instance, my email address is karen.spiewak@townofcharlton.net. And if someone actually plugs that in, types it in, they do not have to go through filling out the form. And quite honestly, that's as it should be. We are public officials, we should be accessible. So my point to this is, if you send me an email with the address and you just put it in to send it. You don't have to do the form. So therefore, I am getting an email that's just going to me anyway, so it's not consistent, because the only ones that are being copied by Robin and Mary would be the ones that go through the actual website. So it's not, again, it's not consistent.
Through the chair, may I ask a question?
Hmm.
So if you get an email sent to you personally, do you then forward a copy of that to Mary for her records?
If needed, I absolutely do, but again, it depends on what the content is and if it needs action. Sometimes you may get an email with just someone saying, thank you. I don't feel a need to forward those. But we are, again, I think
I
I'm
never
pointing at him
forward any of
because we're not in kindergarten. You said that many times.
Okay.
And
No,
we
I just
should be
wondered.
responsible for our individual emails. And I have, anyway, I would like the board to consider that, we remove the town administrator and admin when someone sends us an email using the website. And the last thing I do want to mention, this thing doesn't look like it's working, is the fields that the people are forced to fill out are not validated. And that worries me, because anyone could go in and type anything and send an email, and it's not like it goes through, it's not validated, so there's some issues with that. And again, I think our email addresses should actually appear on the website. I understand, because I did talk to our IT person, and I appreciate his feedback, that we don't want to put the email addresses out there per se, because I guess they might be something called mined. But obviously, everyone here must be getting the same amount of spam as I am. They've already been mined. So I would like to see that our email address is actually on the website too, because we are public officials who people want to reach out. I did request to have my cell phone number put on the website, and they did do that, and I'm very appreciative of that. So
would
that's
that
the
be a
comment.
motion?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second to remove the copy function from emails submitted through the web form.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion?
I would add an amendment to that motion. Would I do that at this juncture?
Yeah, you would make a motion to amend.
I would like to make a motion to amend that we also put a disclaimer on the page that states that they know that their email is going to be public record, and that should they not get a response within 48 hours, that they reach out to the Board of Selectmen's office directly.
So we have a motion. Is there a second for the amendment?
I'll amend my motion, or
Thank
I'll,
you.
Okay, so now we're voting on
Enough said.
the amendment to the motion,
correct.
which is to add the disclaimers as just specified by Ms. Noble.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Now we'll move back to the motion as amended. Is there any further discussion? Which is to, again, now remove the copy function from all emails submitted through the web form, along with the notification that any emails submitted are public record. And if you don't hear back within 48 hours, to please contact the Selectmen's office via the town administrator and our admin. Any discussion?
I just hope that we talk about the budget this much.
Yeah.
I just want to add, I had a conversation today with IT, and they did actually put a disclaimer letting people know that nothing that they send is, that it is a public record. So the piece we'll be adding will be the response.
Thank you.
Good,
We did do that today.
very good.
So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
And through the chair, I would also like to make a motion that we have our email addresses, our town email addresses displayed on the website, so people can,
They used to be.
they're not.
Under-
Even if you scroll over, it does not appear.
If we can,
Yeah, I don't need a motion, but I'm.
I mean, that
yeah,
should just be,
we'll just put it
happen.
up,
yeah,
yes.
it used
Is
to
everybody
be,
in agreement with that? Because
Sure.
it was recommended not
Yeah.
to put them on because of the phishing, but if you
Yeah,
are
it
fine
used to
with it,
be-
we'll do it.
Fished.
under our
Could be.
photographs, it
I'm
had an
just
email
gonna say
address
it's
for
happened
everybody.
already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know,
many times.
I stopped counting.
I know.
I get a lot from CVS to the town of Charlton.
It's funny, I don't get any.
Wow.
It's a true story.
Oh, you will.
You
We
will,
will.
you will.
So we're still ahead of schedule. We could move
Get
to,
it.
Chief was here.
Did we vote?
It's unanimous.
Chief's back.
It's unanimous. He's back?
Yeah, all right, Dan's going to get him.
Because we could go to our 7:30 if they're all here, if the chief's not here. Oh, the
He's
chief
here.
is here.
Hey, Chief. Thanks, LT.
So if the chief's here and Treehouse is here, we could
Yes.
take care of that one?
Yep, that sounds like a good idea.
Chief, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir, thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Chief.
Chief,
Got it. So the first item under old business, Treehouse Brewery, Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Selectwoman Speedwack asked for this item to be on the agenda. Chief Maxfield is here to give you an update, along with Tracy from Treehouse.
How are you?
Good.
So, the traffic, we'll start with the traffic officer, if that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so, traffic officer, just have some quick numbers here. In that vicinity, from January 1st of this year to June 30th, there was 184 violations, offenses there. So, and in that time, total citations written was 685. So that's the traffic officer that we instituted. So he's busy, he's out there, he's working. You know, he's only there 8 hours a day. So, you know, it's, he has to have days off as well. And but he's out there working, and, you know, we're doing the best we can with what we have, so. I brought Kim here tonight to talk about the plan, the traffic flow plan that has been filed with the state. She can probably talk a little bit better about it, so I'll let her, if that's.
Yes, I have one quick question
Sure.
though. So
Yeah.
with the traffic officer and all the citations, looking back at what it was like prior to that going into effect, have we seen from all the citations and the officer's presence a reduction in instances and accidents in the illegal U-turns in the middle of 20? Is it having the desired effect
Yes,
visibly?
it is. So we've had 3 accidents in that stretch of road from the same 6-month period, which is down. So initially, you know, we were concerned because accidents were up, and I reported to you the last time that we discussed it. And then after 3 or 4 months, as the public got used to slowing down through there and seeing through there, they diminished. So those 3, I mean, you're never going to, no matter what you do, even put a traffic light, which I'm not suggesting, but no matter what you do, there will be accidents. There's accidents at the bottom of Masonic, at CVS, at Oxbow. It's just the nature of the way people drive now, the texting and not paying attention, that kind of thing. But it does, it has shown a dramatic, I think, decrease in the speeds there and in the accidents, having him out there.
Thank
Through the chair,
Mr.
just,
McGrath?
can I ask a chief a quick question? Does the traffic officer and does the department have all the tools that it needs right now for the program to move forward?
Well, certainly we could use a second, you know, to cover it. But having said that, if I could have another body, I would put it on patrol. I mean, we're in a situation in the last few years, and I wrote down just some quick numbers. So in 2016, our total calls for service in the department was 16,723. In 2017, it went up to 22,197. In 2018, it went to 24,487. And we're already over 15,000 in 2019. So the town is getting busy. We still have the same number, other than the traffic officer and the SRO, who really doesn't count because he's at the school. We're still operating with the same number of people that we have for many years. And I said it to the finance committee last time I was in front of them, that we're gonna need bodies, I'm gonna be asking for bodies in the next budget. I understand there's only so much money, but, so if I could have a body, I would put a couple on patrol, but ideally, just for the traffic thing, I think a second person, you could cover, during the day, traffic coming through, and then the afternoon and evening traffic, 2 shifts, covered would certainly, even reduce the problems further, I think.
So the other thing I'd like to bring up, the chiefs concentrate on Route 20 where the traffic officer has been. That's not just the only location, because as I've traveled through town, I've seen the traffic officer at a lot of problem spots and a lot of places that aren't problems, but he's trying to just, have visibility and get people to really slow down.
Yes, sir. We've also gotten a couple of grants where we have I call it the magic box, where he goes out and it's a box that he straps to a tree or a telephone pole, and he does surveys of the time of day, the people's speeds, how many cars are moving through there, what the optimum time is to sit an officer there to do radar or other enforcement. And he moves that around, and then he shares that information with the department so that the guys know, hey, 2 to 4 be on this road, 1 to 3 be on that road, that kind of thing. So, and that's, we've on top of the stop signs and working with the traffic commission to find the hot spots and that kind of thing. So we continue to write grants for it when they become available for that type of equipment. And so like I said, it's a constant problem. I mean, we get caught, we're 44 square miles, there's a lot of roads.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot of neighborhoods that we would like to be in more, but, again, most of the time it's 2 guys. And, they're covering a patrol area, 1 guy is covering a patrol area the size of most towns, so.
Through the chair. First, I want to thank you for your efforts, but I do have a couple of questions. Can you give us a refresher on the law about when people are coming out, where you can turn legally, where you cannot turn legally, about the solid line? Because I know people are very confused about that.
So you're talking about a treehouse?
Yeah, treehouse.
Okay, so right now, we're turning right only. There was a bylaw passed, and as part of the new traffic plan with widening the road and putting deceleration lanes and that kind of thing, that's going to eliminate that. We'll be able to turn left out of there, which I think is a better idea once the line of sight is improved with the widening of the roads, and Kim's going to talk about that. So right now, the problem is that all the traffic is directed right, and then they're U-turning. And that's many violations in here. It's a $40 thing, and the problem is that we have to be sitting there. And so a lot of the accidents come when people pull out, they turn right, they get over to the left lane and stop. And the traffic behind them is coming up at 50, 60 miles an hour. And they swerve over, another car pulls out. So also, I've talked to many of the business owners, Mr. Nichols, Mr. Liliani, the guys at the car dealership over there. And they're frustrated too, because a lot of the cars, they go further down the street, and they're turning through the lots during business hours and that kind of thing. So I think that with the traffic plan that Treehouse and Mass DOT has put together, I think that, with deceleration lanes, where it gives people a ways to go, the line of sight will be improved. People can actually turn left out of there like everywhere else on Route 20, and it'll solve a lot of those problems. Will it solve everything? No, I can't tell you that 100% that, we're never going to have an accident there, but.
And again, through the chair, thank you for that explanation. I have to tell you, I've been getting calls. I go out to eat. People are stopping me because they're really concerned. I myself 3 times have witnessed, been behind someone who pulled out a treehouse, went right, stopped it, went in the left lane, stopped. I'm behind them. You look behind, and here comes a tractor trailer. And that's scary. That's really scary.
It is, and we're aware of it, and we've met with the DOT. We've in Worcester to come up with solutions to the problem.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's their road, so there's only so much that we can do. But I think the plan that Kim's going to talk about, I think it addresses most of those, specifically that issue. Being able to turn left out of the brewery, I think is going to solve a lot of the problems that we have.
And again, through the chair, what can we do now until that's implemented? Even if it means, coordinating, so when you're open, the police know you're open, and we send someone to be there. And what is the maximum fine that we can hand out legally. Because I think if that's done, that sets an example, and people will be tweeting all over the place. You don't want to do this, it costs X dollars. Now you're hitting people where it counts. Because I really do, having been through it, I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's when. And if it means monitoring that or having a traffic officer there until we implement the plan you're talking about, and I think we should do it. And I also think that maybe, I don't know if Treehouse could help share the burden of the cost. Just food for thought, but something needs to be done, and I appreciate that we have a plan coming up, but I really feel strongly something needs to be
Excuse me,
done.
through the chair. Thank you very much. Sorry, John. It's been my experience that Treehouse has been an extraordinarily good neighbor in town and has put and paid for police details repeatedly when needed. They went above and beyond what most businesses would do when they put in signage and paid for it. I think sometimes this does come down to individual and personal responsibility when you're driving. We can't be a nanny state and wag our fingers at everyone and say, you're bad, we're gonna, punish you. If they get rear-ended, that's gonna be their punishment. But
If I'm
that being
if I'm
said-
rear-
Excuse me, I'm not done. Thank you.
Mhm.
I know that Treehouse has been working diligently with the DOT and with our police department. We formed the Civilian Traffic Commission a couple years ago to address these issues. I don't know what the fines are for these violations, but I'm sure that they are sufficiently painful, and we have to follow the law. We can't, overcharge people for these fines. I would be very interested in hearing what the new traffic pattern is before we jump to making any changes. I'd like to know how and when it's going to be implemented, and what the town can do to work with you to see this go seamlessly and quickly to eliminate any future accidents.
Mr. McGrath?
Through the chair, and I think that this would probably would work better in getting to where we want to be. Why don't we allow Treehouse to give their presentation or their description of what's going to happen, a time frame, okay, and then in the interim from when they start their plan and then finish it, what we as a town can do to limit that. And I'm along the same frame of mind as Karen, that if we have to pay overtime to somebody and have them out there to do things like that, that's going to be worth it, because I myself have seen it. I have blown my horn as I go by somebody that has done it. And it is not if, it is when. Somebody is going to get killed there because the tractor trailers come down that grade. That's whether you notice it or not. It's a blind down grade. And as they're coming down at, let's say, minimum 60, because that's, if it's a car carrier, it's going faster than 60, especially if he's empty. The traffic that's coming off of 49 to go down to 20 to evade the tolls on the turnpike, whatever the situation is. We're going to have a mess out there one time. So, my suggestion is maybe let's hear from Treehouse and we'll move on from there.
Yeah, if I could, so just, again, I agree with everything everyone said, and Ms. Spiewak, and I do want to hear what Treehouse has to say, and I'm hopeful that whatever the solution is comes sooner rather than later. If I remember, this started way back when Treehouse first opened, and we had conversations, and I had asked for a car counter. Well, we can't do that through 20. Can we put it here? We can't, it's private property. Because I almost got killed about probably 6 times. And I love your beer, but I don't want to die getting it, In that one instance where I remember I had to hit my brakes so hard, my car was shuddering because the guy had pulled out of the Treehouse and decided to cut multiple lanes, and that was it. And you put an officer there and you did a count, a manual count that set everything going, like, oh my God, there's this much traffic, and then we had the MassDOT meetings. So I think everyone wants the same thing, and I think we have to recognize that Treehouse has worked with us, and we've actually made a lot of progress. And I want to keep buying their beer and living long enough to buy more. So I'm hoping that what we hear from Treehouse is that it's also going to happen, hopefully, rather quickly.
And through the chair, I just need to, I want to clarify, this, I'm not criticizing Treehouse. I too love the beer, and I think you've been really good to the community. I just really think something needs to be done until we implement whatever it is, the long-term, long-range plan, that's all.
So we'd love to hear.
So yes.
Well, my name is Kim from Treehouse, not technically actually Treehouse. I just wanted to say first and foremost that we're very grateful for the relationship we have with the police department here in town. And since we came here, even before Max was our chief, you know, we worked with the police department and we've been working with them. You know, I meet with Max maybe once a month to discuss these things and make sure that we're all on the same page and we know what's happening. I see his officers everywhere. You know, I pull out at night, at the end of the night, and I see them, and I come down into Charlton, and I have to come all the way downtown because I live the opposite direction. So I understand, you know, I see them in the morning, I see them at night, and I know Derek works during the day, so I see Derek there, and he's always there. And then there's, you know, other officers that I see. You know, I did pay for details for a good first year, but putting those officers on the street is dangerous. So we don't want them, you know, he doesn't want them up there, we don't want them up there in the car, you know, so I have paid for those details to try to alleviate some of those things. And the traffic has alleviated with the number of hours that we have been, we expanded our hours, we've ramped up the amount of beer that we have. We've also been paying for large signs on the sides of the roads to alert people that there is a traffic pattern change. They start an hour before I open, and they shut off a half hour after. So those signs have helped from what I've understood with some of those traffic pattern problems. We do have an application in with the DOT. Their design is to include a deceleration lane from traffic traveling eastbound, so you're gonna turn right into the brewery, and also a deceleration lane to come westbound and turn left into the brewery. One of the reasons why you can only go right now is because there are so many components, and we were trying to alleviate at least one hazard to try to make it easier for the police to enforce a few things. So we petitioned and we got that, you know, right only, no left turn. We've got cones at the top of the driveway to try to make people understand, but once they're out there at the road, nobody has much control over what they do. So, you know, we try our best to do those things. You know, our driveway will also be widened to accommodate left traffic going out so that people going right aren't stuck up in this left lane, left turn only traffic. All of this stuff is all in the hands of the DOT. DOT works at the pace in which they want. We don't get to say, hey, we need this right now. We are one of many traffic projects throughout the entire state. At this point, our application is in Mass DOT review. They get to review that for a month, and it goes through different boards and different panels. So that, and once they approve that, it'll go into a design phase, and the design phase also takes another month. And that design phase is scheduled to end, to be 75% of the design phase is supposed to be at the end of August. After that, Mass DOT gets to review it again for another month. The best case scenario, they could possibly, with all approvals, issue a permit for October. And in October would be when we can start actually processing the plans to improve and widen the road and get those lanes in. So it's really at the mercy of the DOT because it is a state highway.
And Treehouse is paying for this?
This is all at the cost of Treehouse. And, you know, it's our traffic, so, you know, we will be paying for the improvements to the road there.
I think we all appreciate that, and I don't think anyone here will ever fault you for the painfully slow speed at which the state moves.
Yes, and we're working with engineers who specialize in these things and deal with the DOT. You know, Vanassi Associates, they've been working with us since the beginning. They were with us when we did our curb cut, which was also dictated by the DOT. They told us where to put our driveway. In those kind of things, those are beyond, you know, any of your control, my control, his control. Those are all things that are dictated by a governing power that's higher than all of us. So, you know, we definitely have a plan. it's not approved, but it is moving forward, for sure.
Through the chair, so what can we do to help move this process along? Can we write a letter? Can we get others involved? I think there should be a priority, giving the statistics on that road in that area.
So with
I
the,
mean, John.
So, through the chair, you can ask, we can ask as a board to have the town administrator contact traffic at Belmont Street and ask them to put this on the fast track for both the pre-design approval.
We went to that Belmont Street,
Yeah.
through the chair, we actually went to that Belmont Street address and met with them.
That was
With
the last
Treehouse.
meeting we had, that was the
Yeah,
location.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
so,
did.
so the, you know, and they do have a lot of stuff that's there. Route 20's not their only, you know,
Of course.
bad road. They have a ton of roads that have numerous curb cuts with people who have the same problem. So I think if the town administrator writes, you know, we have her contact Belmont Street in writing and say, could you please fast track this because of the issues that we've had, that would probably help the process along, not only for the design approval, but also for the permitting phase.
Maybe
Because
the
it's two
chief,
separate departments.
yes.
maybe the chief can provide some supplemental data,
Chief can write a letter also.
some statistics on just how many citations are written, might be like, by itself, like, look what we're writing here.
Mr. Chairman, also maybe Peter Durant
I was
and
gonna say.
Bobby and Representative Frost.
Sure.
So can you reach out to our legislators as well, Ms. Craver? So the town administrator will reach out to MassDOT, to the traffic office on Belmont Street. She will also reach out to our legislators as well, support.
Okay.
Try and get a little speed for you.
Thank you.
And through the chair, maybe we can get an estimate at what it would cost to have someone up there when Treehouse is open until then, just so we'd know, and then we could maybe give you more tools or funding or whatever. As a
Yeah,
board, we
I wouldn't
can
have
discuss
it in my
that.
budget to man it, you know, while they were open. I mean, that would, we could pay for another officer for what it would cost the detail rate. So that's something that we, you know, could put together and discuss, for sure.
Through the chair. The only thing that's gonna help that is enforcement every day. That is the only thing that's gonna stop that, because the minute there's somebody not up there, they're gonna continue to do it. It might be, you'd have to look at the peak times on when it'd be, you know, more advantageous to do it, but there's, you know, you've done everything possible, okay? You know, the variable message boards that you have out there from Lidell, that, you know, I know they cost a fortune.
They do.
I know, you know, the placement of them was expensive, and, you know, that works. The cones at the end of the driveway, they work. Any other signage that they have on the road, you know, and plus what the business owners have put up, no U-turns. You know, Vinnie, I know we put up a big sign there. You know, the Zorb has put cones across the entranceway. You know, the only thing that's gonna fix that is enforcement, and I think that Selectmen's BWAC is correct. You know, tickets. You hate to do it, but that's the only thing that they're gonna listen to.
Better a ticket than someone's life.
Exactly. So, you know, whatever we have to do as a board for, you know, financially or whatever, you know, once the chief gets numbers back, it's gonna be money that's well spent.
Anything else? Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're close to back on time.
Page 42.
Chief, can I ask you to sit for 1 second? I might as well knock this out and then you can go. Number 4 under new business was the discussion of possibly removing from civil service certain aspects, some, all, whatever, from the police department. That was not put on the agenda for us to actually have that discussion tonight, but simply to put it before this board to know that it is something that I have been pursuing, I have spoken to the chief about, and if we want to have this on the warrant for October, we need to start thinking about it now and plan future meetings to have conversations around this subject matter. So, that was the only thing it was on for, unless someone had a quick question for myself or the chief. This is more of just letting you know that this is something that I hope to pursue for October.
That's the chair.
Mr. Borowski.
So, Chief, I'm thinking maybe for the August meeting, if we can, to develop just kind of a pros and cons of basically, what are the benefits of keeping in civil service as opposed to what are the benefits of removing it from civil service?
Yes, sir.
And then from there, we can just have what I hope to be an intelligent discussion, and then other towns have done similar things by removing it in the past, and personally, I think it's a good idea. But I would like to, much like you, David, I'd like to see this to be put on the warrant in October, but I want to make sure people are fully aware of what it really means, as opposed to the rumor mill that always goes flying about these things.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
Any other questions?
No, I would just, no questions, I just want to see all the data before we put it on the warrant.
Thank you, chief.
Okay, so I'll put it together for the next meeting, pros and cons, process, there's two, process town meeting vote or collective bargaining and all that, okay.
Yep.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have some of the positives I'll share with you that night.
Okay.
Okay. Page
Past
42.
experience.
Yeah.
So we can go back now, a few minutes behind for our 7:30 scheduled appointment. I'm sorry, yep, 7:30, Ms. Craver.
Yes, sir. Attached is a request from Ed Hood, Executive Director of Ocpan Land Trust, asking the board to review and approve an addition amendment to the conservation easement on the property of Richard Kiston on Stafford Street, Smith Road, Applewood Lane, which was approved by the board at your meeting on November 21st, 2017. See the attached minutes. There was, this was for a permanent conservation restriction on Mr. Kiston's property in Charlton to open Ockham Land Trust Incorporated and Common Ground Land Trust Incorporated. Earlier this year, Mr. Kiston asked 11.51 acres of land from W.H. Webb Construction Company that abutted his land. He wishes to add to this 11.51 acre parcel to his conservation restriction. Mr. Hood will be present to answer any questions the board may have. You are asked to approve the request.
Thank you, Ms. Craver. Thank you, Mr. Hood. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Hood?
Through the chair.
Mr. Borowski?
So, Mr. This seems pretty straightforward, right? You're basically just adding the 11.5 acres to what's already increased. So, I mean, as easy as things are for once, I'd like to make a motion that we approve.
I'll second, I think it's great.
We have a motion and a
You
second.
have the paper, then I have to sign this, I have to have this here signed.
Yeah, we have it, it's in there.
Yeah,
We have one in
we
there.
have one we just signed for it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you should be good,
When can I pick that up, though?
Tomorrow?
actually.
Oh, since everybody votes.
Well,
I was gonna say, right?
It's not in
Did
there.
it-
Oh, it's not,
I
sorry.
think it's-
No, I just signed it in front of it.
thank you.
So at the moment, we do have a motion and a second. We haven't voted yet.
Take your vote, and I
Are
can
there-
make
So there's
copies.
no questions from the board then?
Done.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. Now we can sign the
Maybe tomorrow.
document.
You want to sign
Maybe tomorrow.
this?
Oh, tomorrow,
You didn't
maybe?
sign it.
Robin,
No, he should- Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
I can just run it out now.
Oh,
and
actually,
make
you
you-
can get it right now?
Just let me make a copy of it.
Good, then I can get it.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no place for it, they just need.
You can sign
Right, we try to be efficient every once in a while. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, so when we can, we try.
Did I sign it?
Put your-
No, there was, should be
Okay.
So 5 minutes. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Robin, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You'll have the document in a minute as soon as she copies it for you.
We're being remarkably efficient tonight.
I was moving all
I
the
know.
best.
Well, jinx if you jinx us.
Oh, it's all gonna fall apart in 5 minutes, let's be honest.
No, actually,
Thanks, Mr. Good luck.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, should be all set.
7:45 was on hold.
Yep.
So we're actually going back ahead of schedule again. We've been ahead, behind, ahead, behind, ahead,
Okay.
behind.
Do you want to do the Spartan race?
Yeah,
If they're here.
yeah, they are.
And,
You already
Spartan,
missed something. Go to
Spartan
page
is 72.
Page 72.
And I don't have to yell about this one.
What will we do?
All right, so, under new business, number
2.
2, Spartan Race requests special alcoholic beverage license and traffic crowd management permit. Ms. Craver? Oh, you're back, I'll let you read, I was gonna read for you.
Do you want me to?
okay.
So page
72.
72, we're doing the Spartan. Page 72.
And it looks like everything's been signed off already, unlike the last issue we had with somebody else. Now you guys.
All right. Mr. Chair, special alcohol license, beverage license request. Attached is a request for a special alcohol beverage license for malt, wine and malt beverages from Spartan Race, Peter Murphy, to be used for an athletic race on August 10th, 2019, and August 11th, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at 508 International, 219 Brookfield Road, Charlton. The number of persons expected to attend is 6,000 on Saturday and 2,000 on Sunday. So you have a license, and do you want me to read this whole thing, or do you want to go one at a time? So you have a license request, and then you have a traffic and crowd management permit. Attached is also a request for a traffic and crowd management permit from Jeffrey Connor on behalf of Spartan Race Incorporated for an 8-mile obstacle course race and 3-mile obstacle course race to be held on August 10th and 11th from 6:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday and 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday at 508 International. The number of persons expected to attend is 6,000 Saturday and 2,000 on Sunday. The police department, fire department, and building commissioner have all approved the requests with the following stipulations. The fire did not have any. Police must, stipulation is must submit their tip certification for all servers prior to the event. A detail officer to be present at all times in the beer garden as per traffic parking plan. Saturday, 1 officer and a cruiser at the entrance from 5 a.m. to 1. 1 officer cruiser at the entrance from 1 p.m. to 9. 2 officers assigned traffic parking and shuttle from 5:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. 2 officers assigned to traffic parking shuttle from 1:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. 3, do you want me to read all of these officers on,
You could
and
just say
when
as
they're here?
specified.
So as specified, and there's also officers on Sunday. So these are the detail officers that he's asking for. The building commissioner has recommended a temporary tent-like structures have been issued a building permit. They and the venue will require an inspection on August 8th in the afternoon, at which time the promoter needs to be 80% complete with the setup. Any of the temporary tent-like structures with a capacity of more than 50 persons will have a minimum of 2 exits, 60 inches or more in width, with defined aisles and exits. The tent-like structures will be removed within 30 days of the event. Signage of at least 5 feet by 5 feet be placed at the intersections of Brookfield Road with Route 149 and Osgood Road a week in advance, advising the motoring public of the oncoming event. Jennings Drive will not be used for access to the parking field on the unimproved portion of Jennings Drive. Bus queuing and pickup locations will not be on any public way. Lighting shall be provided at bus pickup and drop-off locations before 6 a.m. and after 7:30 p.m. and all event traffic, including staff, bus, and support vehicles, are prohibited from using Ladd Road for ingress, egress, staging, and turning. Per the board's policy, the special alcohol beverage license, if approved, should be issued for 2 additional days, which is to allow delivery the day before the event and for pickup after the day, with no sales allowed. The dates for this license should be August 9th through the 12th. It is recommended the board approve both licenses as requested with the stipulations as noted.
Motion to approve both with the stipulations.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or any questions?
Yes.
Ms. Noble?
Have you had the race there before?
Yes, and we got
When did you do that?
in May.
And what was the outcome? How many did you have attending?
I believe it was 5,800 on Saturday. These are rough numbers. I don't have the exact.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say it was 1,800 on Sunday.
Okay, were there any automobile accidents?
No.
Any ambulance calls?
I don't believe we had any transports in May.
No, okay, so everything, did anything go awry?
To my knowledge, no. The only feedback that I got from the building inspector was to have the signs put up a week in advance, just to let the town know that we were going to be coming and to
Okay,
expect more traffic that weekend.
okay. Hang on one moment. Ms. Craver,
Yes.
we have received complaints from some of the neighbors in the area of people doing inappropriate things in their yards. Was that during this May event? Do you recall?
I would have to take a look at which event it was.
Okay,
I think that was prior.
okay,
I believe that event actually happened prior to 19.
okay, very good. Will there be fencing around your obstacle courses? And a
Hard fencing, or do you mean like course tape?
course tape?
Yes, we do have course tape going along the entire course, just to ensure, one, everybody knows what the race is, two,
Mhm.
people aren't getting lost and going through the woods willy-nilly.
Mhm.
It is never our intention to go on anybody else's property other than our venue owners. And we
Okay.
do discuss in length with her, Amber Howard,
Mhm.
about what those property lines are, as
Right.
to avoid any of the issues of going on other people's property.
And the participants are also well aware of this?
Very much so, yes.
Do they sign anything stating that?
They do, yep, they sign a waiver when they sign up for this race, and anytime anybody enters our facility stating that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments or discussion from the board? We have a motion and a second. Is there any, I guess there's no more. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good race.
If you would like to go to here, he is here. We could do this one
Wait a
before we
minute.
go to
That one?
It's 10 of, but he is here.
All right, yeah, so we can get ahead of schedule then.
Yes, sir.
All right, 8 o'clock, Ms. Craver?
Yes, sir. Let me just get there, page 63.
To re-energize the Energy and Environment Committee?
Yes.
That was very well played, by the way.
Thank you.
Well said.
Attached
I
is a
didn't write that.
request from Rich Prager asking the board to re-energize the Energy and Environmental Committee as he is interested in being appointed. Mr. Prager states that Charlton has been doing an impressive job of looking closely at energy usage, exploring green options such as solar installations, electric vehicles, efficient boilers, and HVAC systems, etc. He assumes the town has an ongoing interest to become as efficient as possible and in reducing carbon emissions whenever feasible. There are many resources available to towns in Massachusetts, both from state agencies and from nonprofit environmental organizations. After establishing what kinds of projects and priorities the town has already developed and is currently reviewing, an Energy, Environment Committee could consult with those such groups. He would ask the board to consider appointing a 7-member committee for this purpose. I would recommend the board consider Mr. Prager's request and form an Energy and Environmental Committee. He is here, and I had the pleasure of speaking with him this afternoon, and he has some exciting ideas.
Hi, nice to meet you.
How you doing?
Good, good. I don't have anything to add what you just read. That just came from an email I wrote with her, but I did enjoy talking with Ms. Graver this morning for about a half an hour. It's over the course of a few months that we exchanged a few emails, and she told me that the town has already been pursuing things like that, which I was very happy to hear. I've lived in Charlton just for 4 years now, since my wife and I retired here from Connecticut, and we've been really impressed with the town, and this state in particular is very good in environmental planning and supporting green energy. So I don't have any big agenda. I just want to see us do the right thing. And I'd like to see the town save money, for one thing. I think we all like that. And I know there's already been some grant money, and I think from what I've seen, some towns have applied for multiple grants, and there are, I'm sure, things that we could do here that would help everybody. And so if you have any questions, I'm glad to take them, but I just volunteering because I think it's important for our future.
Thank you. Any,
Mr. Chair, I want to thank you, Rich, for coming forward, you know, and volunteering, number one. I do believe it's a very important thing. I think that I think we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. I believe there's a lot more that we can do out there. Street lights is one of my pet peeves. I think, you know, I think that if we could have an ROI on what, you know, just changing them, even the outside lighting, you know, some of the wall packs that we have on some of our municipal buildings, you know, changing them over to LED. I know we've started some of that, you know, and we have been fortunate to have grants, but I think if there's a group of volunteers, you know, that want to help us with that have the time and the energy, you know, no pun intended. But, you know, I think that'd be a great thing.
here's a question for you. So, Mass Save, for example.
Yeah.
They will work with residents, but they will also work with commercial accounts and come into businesses and do businesses. Will Mass Save work with municipalities and come into our buildings and do what they do for commercial?
We have already done some of those inventories. It's called an energy audit, and through the Green Communities Grant, we've changed out some of the electrical ballasts. We've installed motion detectors in most of the rooms, so we are doing that. It's also part of our exercise program.
I also believe that you can piggyback on some of the state contracts that are out there, because you know, just the amount of buildings that the state has, they have contractors locked in to come in and just say you have fluorescent lights, you want to change them over to LEDs. There's you know, fluorescent, not fluorescent, but LED light, fluorescent lighting. They have contractors locked in for that. They have, you know, all sorts of things going on.
Yeah, so it's a good thing to pursue not only environmentally as far as disposal of bulbs, but cost savings alone will also lower the town's expenses on a monthly basis as well. So it's a win-win.
And through the chair, I too want to thank you for coming forward and ask you if there's anything you want to share about yourself, your background, why you want to be on this committee, or
Well,
what sparked you?
I have a degree in forestry, and I've always been, I guess you'd say, an environmentalist. I just love the outdoors, and I'm really concerned about climate change. And since I retired, I have now one granddaughter and a second one being born tonight. So they're at the hospital.
Wow, and you're here?
Yeah, it's all priorities.
Yeah.
My wife's taking care of one granddaughter, and our daughter's at the hospital. So I really think we owe it to future generations to try to do everything we can. I mean, I think the science is pretty well established, and I have read up on it a lot, and I've talked to friends that are like-minded, and cities and towns all over the country and all over the world are trying to do things in this direction, partially to save money and be more efficient, partially because it's the right thing to do. A lot of these things will pay for themselves over time if, it's changing out there's so many things that can be done, but I also was a teacher for about 35 years, and so I'm interested in young people, and I'm just interested in seeing all of us do the best we can to create a good future. I think that's what we're all here for, and in particular, I have that interest in our environment, and I'm very concerned about the rising temperatures and all the other things that are happening with the storms, and so I'm just hoping that we all can work together to I guess, mitigate the factors that we're facing. I think we're gonna, people know what's happening, and people are trying to do what they can to both mitigate and adapt to the way things are happening. And so I can't think of anything that's more important, because I think almost every other issue pales in comparison. If we don't do the right thing with this, it's, I don't have that many more years left on the planet, but I hope the planet keeps going for a long time, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you for sharing, I appreciate it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to appoint a 7-member committee, with Mr. Prager being one of those 7 members. So we would do our usual advertisements and et cetera.
So what would the, so the motion and a second, what would the formation of the committee be?
If you don't do anything, it'll just be 7 people, and we had a conversation about him maybe trying to go out and recruit like-minded people to be on it.
I would suggest reaching out to Todd Gerard,
Yeah, I was going to say.
our conservation,
Yeah, I've met with Todd before.
and ask him if he would like to participate. I think he'd be a good addition to your committee.
Yeah, I like Todd, he's got a lot going,
Yeah,
and,
We also had a
How about-
conversation.
I was about to say, someone from the recycling committee,
yeah,
perhaps?
yeah.
We also
Yeah,
had-
I was
Yeah.
interested to know more about that
Yeah.
committee, and, I would definitely contact them.
Something to think about is perhaps getting a student from the schools involved, junior or senior. We've had a student select person for years, and it's been a wonderful partnership with the schools, something to think about.
Yeah, that's a great
This is their
idea.
future.
Yeah.
We'll get them
No,
involved.
I would like to have a young person participate if they're
Mhm.
able to.
And
So-
I'm sure you get plenty of volunteers for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, great, thank you.
You're
So do we
welcome.
want to leave it just 7 open, or do we want to actually say everyone we've just mentioned be invited plus 3 from the,
I think you'd be fine to let it stay open,
Yeah.
because
You want somebody
you'll
that's
see who's,
interested.
yeah.
I don't think they're gonna be beating down the door. People
you
have a
never
lot on
know.
their plate.
The
But-
other thing we didn't mention is that he could go down to the Lakes and Ponds Association
Oh, yeah.
meeting
Yep.
and have a conversation with them, and maybe there's some possibility of recruitments there.
Masonic Home.
The Masonic Home would be another
so
one,
we'll post
we
and have
also-
them contact the selectman's office?
We'll have them send the talent bank forms to the selectman's office, and we'll get in touch with them. So once we get a couple, you'll be able to call a meeting. We also talked about how to survey what the town would want, and had talked about putting, maybe as one of the steps, putting together a public hearing and some presentations on what's happening with the environment, as well as putting together a survey that may be able to go out with the bills to ask people what are they interested in having their town government and community focus on in this area.
I mean, I would look to Ms. Craver and whoever her successor is, and to the board for any direction. I don't have a particular thing that I want to, I don't have an agenda. I just want to, I would, all those ideas sound good to me, but I don't know what the right protocol is, or, so I would just, whatever you guys think, that's
So
fine.
maybe the first step is get your 7.
Yeah.
And then establish a mission statement.
And we can all brainstorm together and see how we can help out. and-
Yeah, and so then I'll see you next year, and we'll talk again.
Hopefully
In the
soon.
meantime, we'll get
No,
some grants.
the thing that encourages me is that a lot of these things have been looked at by towns similar to Charlton already, and a lot's been done. And I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. We can find out what people have done that works, and, just take it from there. We'll get a lot, I think we'll have a lot. I know there's a group called Mass Power Forward that I learned about. The state, the 350.org, the Sierra Club, and I think some other organizations are all putting their resources together to all work towards getting towns in Massachusetts to take advantage of the Green Communities Program, and to, they have it laid out step by step, beginner, intermediate, advanced, so we'll have a lot to go on once we do get the committee established, and
That's great.
maybe come back and.
Please.
Yeah, I think you'll find there's already a lot of green initiatives in Charlton, so, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
I
No,
look
seriously,
forward to
thank you.
coming
Yeah.
back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can help it, I'll reach out.
What's that?
If I can help it, I'll reach out.
Thank you very much.
And just a quick question. All members will be from Charlton, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I assume that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You
Okay.
can always have guest speakers.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will actually be right back on schedule again. Actually, no, ahead of schedule, because we're done with our 8 o'clock at 8 o'clock. The first item, which is now the last item under new business, it's just funny how that worked out. Discuss the possibility of an LNG committing steps, formation, powers or guidelines, whatever. Ms. Craver, if you would.
Chairman Singer asked for this item to be placed on the agenda.
Well, thank you, that came right back to me. So, I've been having some conversations with some people lately. Mr. Borges here. I think that, for me personally, this is something that would require more than even just a short conversation at a Board of Selectmen's meeting. And I have reached out to a few people to see if we could perhaps get members of the disparate boards together, Board of Selectmen, Planning Board, at Ms. Carey's recommendation, which is a good one, Board of Sewer, Board of Health, into a off-night workshop, hopefully within the next 7 days, so that we could dedicate an hour or two to just have everyone be together, one team, moving forward on the same page, to make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of Charlton, and we're doing this together.
Okay.
Peter?
Thanks, Peter.
Good evening. Again, so my name is Pete Bory. I'm the Water Sewer Superintendent, and I've been working with a group of board members and staff I guess the planning board was tasked to form their own committee for LNG discussion and sharing of information. I believe Patsy was in front of you, and that was the direction that she was told to go. So she reached out to the other boards and commissions and asked for participants to attend the meeting, share our concerns, and talk about what we should do moving forward as part of the LNG siting process. In those initial discussions, we all got together and we had much more questions than we could come up with for answers on our own. And it seemed that the formation of that committee, without the Board of Selectmen's involvement, would just be a parallel path that might not be as effective as a committee that may be formed by your board to include pretty much everyone that was there anyways, and to work together with yourself so we all move forward in one direction on the same path at the same time. So we hopefully, not that we'll all end up in the same place or that we'll all end up with the same outcome, but at least we'll start the path together and share as much information as possible. So at the last meeting, Selectman Borowski was there, and we discussed maybe what the formation of the committee would look like. And I just put this quick purpose and composition together for your review. The members of the commission who have been meeting so far have been the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Board of Health, Water Sewer, Conservation had their agent there. We haven't had a member there yet. And I've talked with the Board of Assessors, and Debbie said that her chairman is interested in participating, depending on what the Board of Selectmen does tonight. And Debbie would also participate as a department head. So I think the makeup of the committee seems to make sense, where we can share consultants and share information firsthand. Again, initially it's just one board member from each board or committee, so that it's kind of hopefully easier to get people together to meet. Unfortunately, I don't think the time frame seems to be condensed right now, so we need to act rather quickly rather than react. We understand that the Board of Selectmen has been negotiating a host agreement, and there's a lot of components to that. But I think the majority, the main reason that again, we've been meeting is to discuss mostly safety concerns, and also to discuss what the board members are hearing out on the street, as I'm sure you are, from residents, about their concerns, and maybe, valid or invalid, what they're hearing and what they have for concerns. So I think if we can form this committee, it would also be a good way to, I guess, relay information to the residents to try and address what we're hearing for concerns, maybe address what might be out there for misinformation, and try and make this work.
If I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know about it, but we haven't actually begun negotiating a host agreement. So,
Actually, I was authorized months
So
ago.
you haven't actually,
So I have had conversations with him.
okay, so I'm not aware of what's in those conversations, we haven't agreed to anything.
Right.
So that's just in process, right? So we have not
We have
agreed to a host
preliminary
agreement.
discussions.
Right, so we haven't entered a host agreement yet. So that being said, I agree with Mr. Bory, I think everything he's saying makes sense, and I think we should. It's funny, because it's really along the line with what I wanted, but probably more streamlined. Yours makes more sense than my idea of bringing everyone together. You've got 20 people in a room, all trying to talk at the same time. That's what happens. So, personally, I'm in favor of this, and I think Mr. Bory has spelled out everything pretty clearly.
Do we need a motion on this?
Well, we already have members, but it's not official. So I suppose we do need an official motion and second vote to have an actual official committee organized by the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second?
Third.
Yeah. So is there any other discussion or questions for Peter? Or
Just
any other
one.
members of the commission that are here?
Will you be on this committee?
As staff only for support, not as a
Okay.
voting member.
Okay,
And I will say Pete being at the last meeting was actually very helpful, because you know,
yes. So I just want to make sure that you'll be part of this.
Sure, I'll be attending again as
Very
a
good.
department head.
And I suppose
Good.
even like, so if I'm not a voting member, I can still come and
Definitely.
participate, so.
Once the committee's formed, again, the meetings will be posted, but trying to keep it with one member from each board will hopefully keep the amount of people we have to try and corral it the same night for our meetings to a minimum, so.
Mhm.
And also, again, Inspector Carlson's been involved from the fire department, so I think getting as
Good.
much staff involved at the same time so that nothing gets missed, because there's gonna be some major components coming up of this, and again, the siting board, we have until August 6th, the interveners have until August 6th to relay their comments, but I'm not sure we're gonna be able to make that, so.
It was a 45-day extension, but honestly, that's, the process itself usually takes a whole year. So we're a little bit, we're a year behind, so we're kind of figuring things out. And
So,
we're an active committee right now.
yes.
so, but the developer has, correct, given us an additional 45 days, so while it's not a year, it's more than a week. So we don't have a lot of room to breathe, but we have a little more room to breathe.
Right. I just, again, looking at it, I just want to make sure that that's formal and it's not just something that's in an email, because of not being familiar with the siting board process, that the siting board may not have to honor that 45-day extension that he agreed to, or if we don't get it in writing the correct way, and if the host agreement does not go correctly, they might be able to withdraw that 45-day extension. So there's a lot of unknowns right now. And I think if you guys do agree to form this committee, I think the next step will be to, again, allow us to seek special counsel to advise us on how to move forward as a group. I think that's why it's more important for you guys, for the Board of Selectmen to form this committee, so that you're involved and it comes from you as well, and we can, again, I believe NEC has agreed to reimburse us up to $30,000 for any type of consultant or special counsel, so that's a good start, to at least be able to, for us to get together and have someone there to answer our initial sets of questions, and then to see where it goes from there.
Thank you, Peter.
So David, through you?
Mr. Borowski?
Oh, Robin, you guys on?
So my question would be, as I'm looking at, it's an advisory committee, I'm not clear on the mission exactly. Advisory committee to who? And I see that it's, in here it says to meet and disseminate information and to share consultants and legal counsel. I'm not clear as to what it is that you're asking the committee to do. So I just, because so much time has passed and not, some things haven't moved forward, I think tonight is gonna be very important for you to assign roles and make sure everyone is clear on what they're doing.
And through the chair, that's kind of where I wanted to go with this, is to be able to say, what are the expectations and assumptions? And, you know, again, my 2 cents, and Pete, I'd obviously invite you and the other members to weigh in as well, in that the host agreement, I believe, should still fall under the umbrella authority of the Board of Selectmen at the end of the day. Now, there could be recommendations in it, you can do whatever you want, but the actual signing, the actual negotiation should be done by an officer, if you will, of of the board. So whether that's Robin, whether that's somebody else, you know, regardless of how this works, that should fall under us. What I would see this committee to be a lot of is to really work through that siting process, to talk around safety, to talk around traffic, basically almost like a super planning board, if that makes sense, in that, you know, obviously the zoning pieces. And I know that they're asking for a ton of waivers on that, so, you know, how is that going to work out? So to work with that consultant to say, well, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. Because as a reminder for those in the audience and at home, this is really driven by the state. Now, we can advocate, we can do our best to ask for things, but DPU, the Department of Public Utilities, are the ones that really have the final say. So if we take a very strong opinion on something, they may listen to us, they may not. I will say in at least prelim discussions or just kind of, you know, side conversations with the folks in NEC, they seem very amenable to working with the town to a point. Now, I also understand that they are capitalists, that they want to make money. So I think that there is a point where if we ask for something, they could just very easily say, no, that's not going to happen. Like I know for some people in town, one of the biggest concerns is the actual site itself on Route 169, as opposed to being on Route 20. They have basically flat out said they are no longer looking at Route 20. They only want to be on 169. That to me is an issue. I know why they're doing it. I mean, obviously, the biggest one for, I don't care what anyone says, it's truly a financial interest. And I get that. However, that being said, initially, we were all told it was at least going to be, their primary was gonna be a Route 20, and then it ended up switching, and I think that caught a lot of people off guard, and honestly disappointed a lot of people, especially for the folks who had to live down there between Millennium, between the dump and everything else. And now we're gonna say, okay, well, now we're gonna place a enormous, you know, tank of LNG right in your backyard. That's a problem. Now, again, I don't know how much control that we have over that, because quite frankly, everything I've read and everything I've spoken to from my friends who work in government, that the governor is very much in favor of these types of places going forward, for a variety of different reasons, inclusive of energy independence, and make sure that during peak hours that everything's fine. So it's kind of a long-winded way to say, I don't know how much control we really have at this point. But what I do believe is that this committee can definitely advocate for what is the best safety possible, the best conditions possible, the best type of zoning, et cetera. So that's where I'm going with this. So it's more of, that this committee would be more around advisory, around planning, whereas this board would continue to have the financial obligations.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Borowski. Now, for me, I was hoping that the committee would come back exactly that and make, again, while we do the host agreement negotiation and whatever the terms may be, I would like input from the various members of the various boards as to what they may think would make sense to be in that host agreement.
Absolutely.
So through the chair, I think, you know, my opinion and the view I take of what this committee is maybe even a little bit more than that. I believe that the committee, with the professional help that they're gonna need, which is they're gonna need a lawyer, they're gonna need legal help, and they're also gonna need a consultant that's familiar with this type of stuff, okay? You know, and has been involved with towns, so it is gonna cost us some money. But I think that we need to have that type of help to assist the planning board, who is the intervener.
There's three of us.
Okay, but,
Yeah.
you know, still, you know, I think the lead was coming from the planning board. And I believe they need that type of assistance in coming up with the right phrasing, and the correct positions to take with the state on this is what we want and this is how we're gonna get it. I think without that type of help, the professional help, we're gonna be swimming upstream. So, you know, I believe the committee is basically gonna assist the planning board and the other two interveners in writing our requests, you know, to move forward. And I think that should be the charge of, you know, of the committee.
So, through the chair, I believe one of their main requests is a zoning exemption, which means site plan will not have a say, and the zoning board of appeals will not have a say. They could present a plan for the planning board or the zoning board of appeals to look at and say, yes, we like this or we don't like that, but they have no teeth to require any changes. I think that's where the host agreement is very important, right now, if they are zoning exempt, that is our only agreement with them. So that may include some of the safety factors that the planning board and the ZBA and the Board of Health identify. So I think that's why it's very important that while you will be the sole signer, I don't think any of us want to take over ownership of that from you. I think the input from this committee as part of the host agreement could be very important to make sure that nothing's missed, such as training for fire department, police, and all that and also for the education component of the residents, to make sure that they are informed and their questions are answered. And again, not that every resident will be happy with it, but again, maybe you can answer the questions the best we can, and also explain, like you said, we might not have any options but to accept it, but in accepting it, this is what we've done to protect the residents and try and answer your concerns. So I think that's our main goal. That's the main goal of the people who sat here so far, which I'm sure is similar to yours, so.
So it would appear
We're on
to
the same
me,
page, absolutely.
yeah, so it would seem to me that we need to not only then have the vote and the assignments of members of the committee, but also assign, basically what Peter just said, that's going to include a requirement that we also approve or appropriate monies for council for the consultants, and that I think should be done at the same time this evening. If you don't want to empower a committee to do something and then say, hey, great, you guys go do this, but we're not going to give you the tools to do it.
Well, no, through the chair, yeah, no, I think that's an absolute requirement tonight, because, as some had mentioned, so initially it was August 6th, everything had to be in by. For a variety of reasons, it kind of snuck up on everybody. Based upon some conversations, there's been a 45-day reprieve. However, it's still only 45 days, that's literally, 6 weeks.
Right.
So that means that we have to hire a consultant, we have to write these things up, and if anyone's ever experienced these types of things before, it's not like you're filling out a form letter online. I mean, these are detailed engineering specs and really very complicated design questions that have to be brought into consideration. So we need to get somebody like yesterday, that type of thing. So, if we're okay with making the motion to form this committee, my next motion is going to be to allocate X amount of dollars up to, whatever it may be for now, to hire a consultant and or lawyer to assist the committee.
Ms. Spivak.
So through the chair, I would like to know, I'd like to hear from our finance director about dollars, if she could add her 2 cents in. And I would also just like to state that before we sign any kind of host agreement, I hope there is a public forum. I know you mentioned getting input from the residents, but I think that's very important that we have that prior to inking any deal. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, good evening. Well, I'm always the bearer of great news. You really don't have any funds, and we don't have a town meeting till the middle of October. FinCom has already spent a considerable amount, unusual amount already in this fiscal year. And I have a meeting with them tomorrow night for 2 more transfers that were unexpected. So Finance Committee needs to be involved because right now they're the only ones with any funds that can do this. And my other concern, which I believe is on the agenda as well, is the last legal one that you did with VGG is open-ended, so I don't even know how to estimate how much you need for that. So if you go out and do consultants or whatever, we need to approach the FinCom and say, this is how much we need, and make contracts that say not to exceed that amount. Because we could get into a situation where we don't have the funds to pay for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, my assumption, perhaps, well, at least I hope that it holds true, is that we would make the motion tonight to, again, I'm not sure what that dollar is, because I know there are discussions around getting reimbursed by NEC as well, so we'd have to front the money, obviously work with FinCom to be able to have them help us, find it, or vote for it, if you will, via that transfer. And then I'm assuming, again, this is where I may be going astray, that reimbursement would then just go back into the general fund once we get it back from NEC.
You're looking at me.
Because I'm hoping you're gonna say, yes, Bill, that's exactly how it's gonna work. Yeah.
What I would like to do is to have a conversation with them and require them to provide the $30,000 up front so that we can use that.
Yeah.
And if you are looking at how to allocate, I would recommend that you, if you want to have the committee doing the consultants and getting ready to do the submissions, I would recommend that you give them the $25,000 and that the Board of Selectmen keep the $5,000 so that we can use that for the host agreement and legal.
That works.
And they would take their 25 and do what they need to do.
Let's talk to them.
Chairman of the Planning Board.
Yeah, Patsy?
When we received the email, it says that NEC would be willing to give the planning board 20, the ZBA 5, and the Board of Health 5. So we were hoping to combine the whole 30,000 to pay for I mean, as you all know, this process is long and it's expensive, and $5,000 is necessary. I mean, if you want to, clearly 25,000 is not going to be enough. 30 probably won't be enough. And so to reserve 5,000, and if the 30,000 was clearly designated, at least in that email, for our boards, and we are a combined group.
Actually, in the email, it was, my negotiations with him was $30,000, and when I sent that out, I was unaware of the ZBA being an intervener, and I had split up the 5,000, 5,000, and 20,000. So in that email, my recommendation was 20,000 to the planning board, 5,000 to the Board of Health for whatever consultants they needed, and 5,000 for the Board of Selectmen to work on the host agreement and have legal assistance with that, because I think that the host agreement is one of the most important documents that you can be working on right now, if that is truly going to go forward.
Haven't we had almost 2 years of negotiations on that host agreement already with all these legal costs? Do we really need that much more? I'm just saying, the very important part that I want to discuss is what we're dealing with is resident safety. Our big concern is that we protect the residents of our town. And honestly, I understand money and finance, but are we gonna start putting, all right, you can spend $25,000 to make sure that your residents are not put in very unsafe conditions, but that's it. So when you run out, we have to.
Well, Patsy, I don't think anybody's saying that.
Yeah, no, through the chair, I have to tend to agree. Please do not put words in our mouth.
Yeah.
That's not the case, okay? I believe what I said was that we are willing to hire the consultants and the legal team that we need to hire to do this correctly. How we work the numbers, we will, okay? We'll get it worked out, but we'll have the best people that we can that know this type of process. And I think that's what the board wants to do. We're just down to the nuts and bolts of where we can move money from right now. I'm sure the town administrator can tell NEC that there has been an additional intervener that we did not know about, and that this is our game plan to move forward.
Well, they know about it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
I'm not saying that they didn't, I'm just saying when we put the monies allocated for who would need to get some consultants. And I was not factoring in using attorneys. I was factoring in using consultants that would be able to review the documents that have been submitted, and then to help you write your comments and what you were looking at. I also want to mention that Matt Taylor is in the back of the room. He is from NEC, and we welcome him and are glad that he could join us. So if you want to add into this, you can. If you want to just sit and listen, you can also do that. But I do want to acknowledge you.
If you want to open up your checkbook, whatever, that's well, Francis.
Yeah.
So
Mr. Chair?
the offer of the 30,000 was what they had suggested, and they were willing to start as a start. So.
Well, I think that's the important part, is the 30,000 was a start. I'm sure, hopefully, if negotiations are still going well and moving forward, if there was a need for more, we could ask them for more at that time. If negotiations stall and we come to an impasse, then we're gonna have to figure out, again, as a town, what we're gonna do from there. So hopefully we don't end up at that point, but I think 30,000 to start is,
Right,
at
we
least
don't-
gets us moving, we'll get our initial questions answered. As far as funding from the Board of Selectmen for now, doesn't the Board of Selectmen, you just started with a fresh legal budget July 1st, didn't you?
That's for all regular legal throughout the whole year.
I understand, but again, with NEC already committing to reimbursing us that $30,000, isn't your legal expense usually $100,000 per year?
I'm
Your line
actually
item?
saying that we should be able to get the money from
Okay.
NEC, that we would not be using any of our funding.
Okay.
So I think one thing that's important to say, if I can, and only because I don't want to see this conversation, quite honestly, go around for 30 minutes about what's already been discussed, and hopefully clearly stated, is that it's not a question of giving the money. That's been decided. The money will be given. It's simply, there was simply a conversation of where to get the money from in different pieces, because we want this to move forward. So I think we can nip in the bud any question about the funding. No, the board's agreed to fund it. It's a question of just where the money will come from, whether it's from NEC, us, a combination of both. No one's saying it won't. We absolutely are going to support the funding you need for this. It was just, that conversation was just about where the pieces would come from.
Through the chair, I think that conversation would probably be best left to the town administrator, the town finance director, and the FinCom, and then come back with whatever you come back with.
Through the chair, I would make a
Mr.
recommendation though, sorry, that the full 30,000, Robin, I know where you're coming from this, and it makes sense, but I don't want to come back later and say, well, if only we had an extra 1,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
What I say for now is that we allocate the full 30,000 towards a consultant / lawyer / whomever we need to petition the state for whatever interest, and obviously work with NEC as best we can and try to work something out. But, and then from there, we just, like we always do, if we have to find money, we'll find money, but we can't shortchange this one.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
we're
So
good.
what do we need for a motion?
We need a motion to form a
Mr. Chair,
committee.
Frank Lombardi, zoning board of appeals. Just so you know that through the DPU process with the interveners, DPU does require counsel for all three of us. So we had discussed it, we weren't looking for each one of us to have counsel, but that's one of the requirements as part of the process. So I know we talked about consultants or whatever, but we're gonna need to have as part of that, someone that can appear before the DPU.
Oh, yeah, no.
At least in, that it's
Through the chair, I think I think that was understood, Frank.
Okay.
Legal counsel
Because I have
and
questions, like,
consultants.
there's a ton of zoning exemptions,
Yeah.
and I have questions that I need answers, yeah.
So I think the first step would be to actually have a motion and a second to form the committee.
So moved. Second.
And you want to include your motion to make it with the committee?
As noted.
As noted, thank you.
As noted.
So we have a motion and a second to form an LNG advisory committee made up as presented by Mr. Boria. Is there any discussion?
Through the chair, I just would like to know if the finance director has any more comments?
My only comment is when you do hire people, to put something in there that it's up to a certain dollar amount, so it stays within that dollar amount, and then you can, if you need more, you come
Absolutely.
back and you know that you need to get more funding.
Yep.
We never appropriate a blank check.
Thank you.
No, Don, I'm with
So
you.
in your
Thank you.
motion, you're also
So-
authorizing them to get legal?
Yes,
And that they'll be
Yeah.
doing that on their own?
that's correct.
So
So-
maybe
But
you
that'll
want to
be
make
the-
that clear, because I'm,
Yes.
I'm
That'll
looking for
be
my own
the
direction
next
also.
one.
That'll be in the next
And I'm
motion.
not-
This is
Right,
just
so
a
the
form.
first motion is just to form it. So we have a motion and a second. We have the makeup of the committee. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. So we have an official LNG advisory committee. Mr. McGrath?
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion that we fund the LNG Advisory Committee with $30,000, which would be up to the finance director, the FinCom, and the town administrator to figure out where it's coming from. And that would be for legal counsel and consultants to help them through the quagmire of the intervenor stage with the DPU and with NEC.
So I have a motion and a second, and I think it's hopefully clear that, you know, should more money to be appropriated, we can do that, but we have to have limits on every appropriation. So, is there any further discussion? So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. So the, Ms. Craver, go ahead.
Regarding the host agreement, what would you like next for that?
Yes. Mr. That was one of the questions I was gonna have, knowing our current situation and timelines. Robin, I don't know how much you can say of this in public, so we can always do an executive session under later, but how far, I mean, what is the expectation around timing on that? Meaning, will it be done by October 1st?
That is possible, I'll say. It depends on how quickly the committee can get information back to this board as to what their requests would be. And it would also depend on this board having a conversation about what its desires would be. You know, what I like to do when negotiating these is to get clear direction on what the Board of Selectmen want, and then I will go and work my best to get it done.
So I think to
So clear
Mr.
direction would be helpful.
And Mr. Bransford's comment, I think executive session, we can have those conversations. I think it would be a good idea, while we would all hope that it is achieved by October 1, just as a plan B, in the event it actually is not complete by October 1, I think it would be a good idea to have another department head involved in the conversations with you, so that, should it be necessary, there's another department head that knows everything that's happened, and we don't find out that we're in a sudden position where Ms. Craver is not here, this is not complete, and no one knows what's going on.
Well, I can tell you that that would not happen. I will keep you up to date on everything that I do. And given that, I would actually think that we should be having regular meetings, having discussions on it in a clear.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. McGrath?
I know that we plan on meeting next Tuesday.
Yep.
For, you know, for the town administrators search thing. I think maybe we might want to post an executive session for next Tuesday.
What time is our first interview?
So you should probably be done about 8:30, so we can just post it for afterwards if you wanted to have a conversation.
That's good.
I think that would, you know, could ease into that.
Yep.
Okay.
For the chair, regarding your comments, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I go back to, I think we should have someone shadow for a month, another department head, and I don't know if it would be appropriate for the finance director at his time, but I'd feel more comfortable having a plan B, if you will, or a safety net.
I think we probably have to have a discussion around
I
that.
think that has to take place next
Around,
Tuesday.
like, a lot of things about transitions over the
We
next.
do need
Yeah.
to have a conversation about, there's a lot going on.
Well, I was about to say, and knowing that our next real meeting isn't until end of August, which
Yeah,
would.
amazing, we have a lot between,
Yeah, I was gonna
lot of
say,
meetings
yeah,
between now and now.
which is surreal in its own way, but again, again, let's be as sensitive as we can to this, but, you know, let's assume October 1st is, it's coming quickly, because that'll mean we would have 2 meetings in September, and then October 1st is here. So sometime in August, we need to start discussing transition plans to make life easier for Robin, make life easier for the residents, make life easier for everybody. And so that things progress as fluidly as possible. So we may need another meeting in August, if nothing else, just to talk about this.
I would
It's really
suggest you may
July.
be having a meeting every week.
Yeah, that's
in
honestly,
August.
that's what I'm thinking.
I think we've done that in July.
I was gonna say.
Sometimes more than one a
yeah.
week.
I love our summer schedule, it works out great.
I know. All right, so
So short answer, we'll figure something out.
we have our committee, we have our funding.
Did we vote on the funding?
Not yet?
No, not officially.
No.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the funding? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. And Ms. Craver will please post for us an executive session for next Tuesday night.
As well as the other 25 meetings we're having in August.
Now, for the
Pete, everybody, nice job on
the
this.
executive session.
Well, I think we have to, this committee has to meet.
I think you need
Are you gonna appoint one of your own members?
Okay.
Bill.
What's that?
Bill's
He's already appointed.
Oh, yeah, if, through the board, if you guys want me to continue, I'll do it with.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if,
I think
John,
this
if
is-
if
I
you're
think
gonna be
this is so
alternate.
moved in a second, right?
That works. Cool.
All right,
All right, we're moving.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Is
Do-
Don- is
But
Donna
that's a
gonna
good point. Do we
maintain
have
the
to
seat?
reaffirm the members on that committee,
Huh?
From our board,
just from ours?
do you want to have an official, would you make an official motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Bill Borowski to the LNG.
We have a
Yeah.
motion and a finger?
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
second.
I actually like the motion and a finger, but okay.
You may want to ask Peter to submit all the names so that at the.
Peter is gone. I'll ask you, please reach out to Peter and ask for that. So we have a motion and a motion and a second for Bill Borowski to be the select board representative. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? He's not here, so chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Should we leave the
No,
room?
he's grabbing Peter
Oh,
and asking him
okay, good. Well, we already
list of the
voted.
names.
He's gonna send those names.
All right, perfect.
We'll
So
get
we
them
just
on
voted.
next.
It was unanimous.
Oh, well, I'm horrified.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have to vote John as the alternate? We didn't, did we?
No,
Yeah,
we
you
did
can
not.
vote me if you want.
All right, motion to make Joan the alternate.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously.
Yeah, that's coming now.
If I'm not mistaken, we are now down to old business number 2, and I'm going to leave.
Okay. See ya.
See you,
Y'all
Bill.
have fun now.
Yeah, I'll come get you.
Oh, no, I'm leaving.
What's it? You're not gonna stay for the other exec session then?
There's stuff in there I can't talk about.
No, there's not.
No,
There's two things.
There's only one thing,
only
So-
one thing now.
and it's what you can talk about.
Yes.
Are
You can't
sure
go
the other
home.
one's
You're
not
going
happening?
nowhere, my friend.
It was taken off.
Okay, because the other one was an easy one. You
Correct,
actually
yeah.
didn't need me for, but I couldn't talk the other one, but that's
Correct.
off.
You have to stay, David.
Yeah, nice try.
I'm sorry.
I don't have to do anything, but I will. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
I'll come get you.
You can
now.
leave, Brian, you
Come
get a
get me.
break.
All right, like I said.
Okay.
I'm taking my phone with me and my glasses
Did you take any ball and go?
and my water.
Keep our keys.
I know where I'm not wanted.
Stay off my motorcycle. Here, Buzz.
So we're going to be discussing planning board legal expense, VGG subdivision appeal. Robin?
I have nothing to say.
What?
This was put on here.
Let me see.
I thought you had a memo in here.
Let me check it.
Yep.
I found it.
Yes.
Thought you were asking me to speak.
No, just to read your memo,
Okay.
unless you want me to
At
read
the
your memo.
board's- At the board's meeting on April 23rd, the planning board asked, and you authorized them to hire David McKay of Myrick and O'Connell as their counsel for the Valley Green Grove definitive subdivision plan. Members of the board wanted to have a discussion due to no limit being set of an appropriate dollar amount for this purpose. I've attached a copy of the engagement agreement as special town counsel for information. To date, the following has been paid to Myrick and O'Connell for the approved purposes. It's a total of $17,436.34. The board should set a dollar amount for this contract, and should that amount be met, they would need to come back to request additional funding if needed. And your finance director is also here to have a conversation on if we have money.
The finance director and planning board chair would like to come up, please.
Through the
Thank
chair.
you. Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
I have a question. I was under the impression that we had been billed more than 17,000, that amount was closer to 26,000.
I was under the same impression when we added it up. It didn't appear to be that way unless there's still another bill that we haven't found.
Well, I'm sure we're going
So
to,
I'm gonna assume.
I'd like to
they're going to
ask,
enlighten us.
I'd like to ask the finance director, sorry. Can you tell me how much they have billed to date and for what time period that is?
So I've only had bills through June 30th at this point.
Okay.
And that, the number that Robin has is the number, not, I haven't seen the 26,000.
So we have looked for it, but it must have missed with something different.
Okay.
We actually did find a 26,000 number that we had talked about, and it was to do with
Right.
something else, and I think we kind of meshed that
Right.
in.
So was that 26,000 for a different legal bill for the same matter?
I think it was my second request for the finance committee to transfer The rest
Okay.
of their funds were like 26,000.
Okay,
So it was total
So I thought
for
it was
everything lumped
legal.
together, for
So-
for other things.
For other
We
things.
spent about 150,000 in FY '19 on legal, not counting the 17,000.
Okay, and that
And we-
150,000 we spent on legal in the previous fiscal year,
Correct.
what was that attributed to?
Your KP Law, your Cosgrove,
Mhm.
you had a number of personnel,
Yes,
legal
okay,
services.
okay.
It was just an extraordinary amount, and a lot of it came
Mhm.
right in at the end of the year. So, the concern I had is that I went already twice to the FinCom to get us through fiscal
Mhm.
19, and then when I realized there's no limit on the contract, I'm concerned that we're gonna be at like $15,000 a month, we're gonna be without money in a very short amount of
And
time.
Absolutely, as somebody that used to work as an auditor in litigation cost management for an international insurance company, I can tell you that these legal fees will rack up very quickly.
Right.
And I was reading through part of the agreement, and, well, it's not, I can't say it's an agreement, but when they talk about legal fees and staffing, typically, in one of these agreements, you allow, you limit the staff to a partner, a junior attorney, and a paralegal. But in here, it clearly states that we may delegate other work or research to other attorneys or paralegal in the firm, and it doesn't say that they have to come back to us for approval of that. Those are the kind of things where the fees start to rack up.
And just, and not saying that, and it's your call of how much you want to spend on this, but I think it needs to keep coming back to you for, okay, we've spent X amount of dollars, we need to know if we want to go for more, because you probably will need to fund this in October.
Right.
So through the
Yep.
chair, I would, since we spent 17,000 already, I would, just suggestion is that we say it's, put another figure we're gonna spend another $17,000 on this, and that would cap it at like 34, and then they would have to come back for more money after that. Which, wouldn't, I don't foresee any problem with doing that. It just keeps us aware of what's going on with the legal expenses.
Right.
And it keeps the, we thought it was 26,000, but it's, it's not, it's 17,000, so it's $9,000.
Your average is around 100,000 with just your normal stuff, so this is above and beyond it, and that's why I wanted to keep bringing it to your attention. I know I've kind of like driven it home a lot.
No, it's good.
And there is a way you can,
No, you should.
Just kind of watch it, because,
There's one other thing I'd like to point out. If we're going to place a cap on legal fees, then we should also have a time frame in there as well. X amount of dollars through, when is the next motion? What's the next step in this litigation, Patsy?
We're up to October 31st. We got an extension to October 31st.
Okay, so I would like to put an end date in there,
I would suggest fiscal year, keep it on a fiscal year.
Yeah.
So it ends June 30th, and that way you're not crossing.
Yeah.
So through the chair, I would make a motion that we increase this by, put a cap on this at $34,000 total right now, okay? And the reason I'm saying that, I think I've explained, we spent 17,000 already, figure we're gonna spend at least another 17,000. And that we put the fiscal year as the end date, per the finance director's
okay, so
recommendation.
we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second for discussion?
Any discussion?
Through the chair? I'm just curious to see what Patsy thinks.
Well, we did get an estimate from, Robin had reached out to Attorney McKay, and he sent an estimate on what he thought total costs were going to be, assuming if there was going to be any appeals, or if we're actually going to go to trial, or actually have hearing, so it's hard to say, but as long as we can come back and, again, request, I'm comfortable with the, I mean, you guys meet every week, so it's easy to come back and get more,
We could be meeting daily soon, you never know.
so.
The other thing I would like to, through Madam Chair, the other thing I'd like to remind the board is that we do have the ability to review these bills, and if there's anything that we feel is amiss, we can push back, if you will. We can discuss it with the firm. We do have that authority.
So what I would recommend is that the planning board and the finance director, that would be their pushback. I consider that maybe micromanaging for our board to examine. I mean, we don't do that for every.
No, I just want to say,
as a whole, okay. I thought you
As a
meant
whole,
us.
no,
Okay.
as a whole.
I stand
if-
corrected then, thank you.
Especially, the finance director.
Review your bill,
Yes.
just review your bills. make sure
Please
it's in place.
review these bills very carefully. That's all I would ask, because you may see something in there that doesn't quite fit.
That makes
Or
sense.
something in there that you think is excessive. It's important to be mindful of these things.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you, Deb. Seriously, we've been reviewing the legal invoices in very much detail, especially as the chair, because I sign off, and I'm an
And
auditor.
because you're an auditor as well.
Our numbers agree, and if we would question, we would absolutely reach out.
They're a reputable firm, then, you know.
Oh,
Mark,
Yeah, they're,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and any other discussion?
I'm good.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries, it's unanimous. I would ask the finance director, who shared some information with me not that long ago, what happens typically if we overspend a line item? Because that'll hit home.
So if you spend in excess of an appropriation, I'm a mandatory reporter to the DA. And at that point, it can be a fine and/or imprisonment for doing so. And the concern that I had is you all have voted, and maybe John's name is on it and Patsy's name on it, but there's two boards involved, and I can't make that decision. I would just pass that information on to the DA. That's why it's important to try to control this, and not in the sense that you're trying to control what they're fighting for, but there's money there, and there's only a limited amount. You had to keep coming back and watching that.
And I
Just
think-
being mindful of
And
it.
it's a good lesson for us too, as a select board, to make sure we're mindful of how much, we are spending. So, thank you, I appreciate it.
And one of the things that we might want to keep in mind with the October meeting coming up, if we could maybe have the town administrator and the finance director just for, as a safety net, maybe move some money. We're gonna have to probably
Yeah.
move some money from stabilization into legal fees,
Yeah.
or legal counsel and consultants, whatever we have. That's
cash,
just a
whatever.
suggestion.
Yeah, something.
The other thought, and I had some conversation with the FinCom as well, is to restore back the FinCom monies that they've spent out, and that way they can allot it throughout the year, if you run into trouble again.
I don't like using free cash for like operating budget, for our O&M budget, but could we use that?
You can, and I don't like it either, but these are kind of more extraordinary than regular.
Exactly, that's why.
Especially what I saw last year was definitely more extraordinary.
That's why I would normally never even suggest it, but it's something that we probably want to talk about as an option.
Because they're one-time revenues.
Yeah.
If you use it on a big project that you only expect to have once, then that's an appropriate
Yeah,
use.
so, this was weird.
Question, please?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the law firm gave you an estimated total cost. I didn't hear the amount.
I honestly couldn't tell you. It was a few weeks ago.
Okay. And typically, doesn't the town's insurance company pay for all of this?
Not on this.
Not when it's a zoning issue
Yeah.
or a site plan, because we have control of it.
So it's on the town completely?
Yes, is one of those.
It's an appeal
Yeah.
of a decision.
Good question, though, thank you. All right, any other discussion? All right, I guess we can bring Chairman
Wanna
Singer
give
back
David
in.
back?
Ladies, thank you for your time.
Can I do it too far?
Thank you.
Just, I just wanted to put you up here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
see this? See this entry here? Where the attorney has multiple different events going on in Bill 250. I would
No, nothing much.
take that back.
Oh,
yeah.
He's got
I don't know.
I didn't get to wrap up regular, but I did have one,
I
like,
would make
under
you
kind of
break
new
that
business.
down into
No, not
individual
even.
entries.
So, through a chair?
And there's a lot of
Sure.
things going on.
So, Patsy, I had read on the planning board Facebook page, I think it was, and I think Randy just left. And I think you and I have spoken as well around, you've put some grants in, or some applications for sidewalks. And I know, Dave, you and I think others I've
Oh, yeah.
spoken briefly with. What I'd like to find a way to do is sometime in the fall is coordinated between Jerry, the planning board, the planner, this board, et cetera. I've had a lot of requests from people around those sidewalks, by the library and all the way down. They're basically in disrepair, let's be honest. I mean, if, like, as you walk, it's a bit of a disaster. And I promised people in the neighborhood that we'll at least bring it up for discussion. And John's gonna tell me that DOT is gonna pay for it.
Would that be under, would that be under chapter
I
90?
think we have to put it on the next agenda.
Patsy, I believe the grant was through Complete Streets.
Yeah.
Okay, so I believe the way the grant works is that you estimate the work, you get the work done, and then DOT handles the, I think they treat it the same as chapter 90, Robin, where you, once you do the work, you send it to 403 Belmont Street, they have a person that handles that stuff, and they reimburse you for it. Just a cautionary note, once you touch a sidewalk, okay, you own it for the ADA compliance.
Yep, absolutely.
And the ADA compliance is not the way Charlton usually does sidewalks.
And that's why I just wanna be able to talk about it in the
Right.
fall to say, let's.
But there is money there, it's so you're gonna get, we'll be able to get sidewalks done, but you're not gonna be able to get, a lot of sites, but you can reapply.
So question, and would that fall under chapter 90 though? So
No.
if we needed extra money?
Oh, no, completely different program.
Yeah.
You had to, the planning board did a very good job at this, there's a ton of paperwork that had to happen with it. And then, it's very detailed on how it works.
We had there's three kind of pieces to it, so we did the assessment and we found our need. We got money to further address where's the best place to spend the money? Because we obviously can't do everything. And now we're on kind of part 3, and many engineering firms will come in and actually do the design. We have to do the walk around, we would love you to join, to figure out where we want to focus. There was some talk about getting them down to the schools, because we see kids coming up and unmug it, with the cars, and again, lots of.
Yeah, I just wanna get us all on the same page,
So
because
on
I know
the-
that you guys were doing something, but I don't know how it fits in with
So-
Jerry and the DPW, so I'm thinking like September meeting, October,
We need
whatever
to
it is.
hire,
Right.
most engineering firms will come and do the design for free, because they actually make decent money once we get the grant, so we kind of need to reach out and bring an engineering firm that's willing to do that, and then they get the contract to kind of do the work.
So I'm gonna take this as something we've taken care of under other business unknown at the time of posting.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
ask if we can put this on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, no,
As an official item for
absolutely,
the
yeah.
August.
Oh, August?
Our official August meeting, because we're having more than one.
August is fine, September's fine.
So I'll ask Randy to come, because he speaks the talk better, he knows it better than I do.
So we'll put this on the official August meeting agenda to talk about sidewalks.
We'll get sidewalks.
That works.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect.
All right.
Next.
Is that it?
That's, I assume, no, there's nothing. The town administrator's report, Ms. Craver? Do we have one? Page 148?
Oh, I thought we were doing it. That's my fault.
I shut mine off. Always.
No, page 140-something.
Mr. Chair, I forwarded the board an article that was in the Telegram Gazette on June 11, 2019, regarding the PFSA contaminants. These contaminants, and I should have put in the exact name of it, But these contaminants are a family of man-made chemicals that have been lurking in the United States for decades. These chemicals, which are water-soluble and persistent in the environment and human body, appear in a non-stick cookware, food packaging, pizza boxes, water repellent, clothing, and more. The article has far more information. I've shared it with all the departments as well. When I had a conversation with Mark Baldy at the last Exxon meeting, he said it was the new major concern in the state. So we'll keep you updated on that. Hickman versus Charlton, we have been notified by Pierce Davis and Peritino LLP that the Hickman versus Charlton case has been dismissed. The matter was resolved following the mediation and was settled for $45,000. This case was a slip and fall. It was settled by the insurance company. Cooling Center, as you know, July 20th and 21st were extremely hot. Emergency Management Director Carl Ekman and Deputy Emergency Management Director Terry Goff, with assistance from volunteers and members from the CERT team, opened the senior center as a cooling area. They have reported that 16 people used the room during this time frame. I would like to thank them for putting this together to help our residents in need. And that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Craver.
So, oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's fine. Is there any other business unknown besides sidewalk? No? That being said, someone have the,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to enter an executive session under MGL, Chapter 38, Section 21, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, the fire union, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and to return to open session to effectuate any votes required for the discussion.
Second.
we have a motion and a second.
Roll call vote.
Yep. Ms. Spiewak.
Aye.
Mr. Borowski.
Yep.
Ms. Noble.
Aye.
Mr. Rat.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries unanimously. We are now in executive session, and will come out of executive session solely for the purpose of adjournment.
Thank you, Drew.
Oh, we might vote? Thank you.